Namaskar. I am Dr. Krishna Shankar Kusuma, working as Senior Assistant Professor at AJKMCRC, Jamia Millia Islamia. I welcome you to the module that deals with gender and performing arts. After studying this module, you shall be able to learn about the concept of gender and performance, learn the nature and concept of performing arts, understand the role of women in the performing arts in India. Not only that, analyze the role of gender in theatre and examine the transgender and drag performances. Performance is an embodied practice where every performance is unique to different cultures and genders. It exists in variety of forms and formats, and these are continuously emerging. The performance spaces and means of production distinguishes the respect and patronage for any performance. Entertainment has been a part of human race where performance art forms are an integral part. The performance is for self or for the specialized audience or public is always determined by the nature of audience. The same is challenged when someone performing for their self expression in their own means of communication. People have been using their bodies for means of expression. The understanding of art needed to be studied with a gender perspective to reveal various aspects of politics of identity, space and emerging cultures. Now, let us discuss some of the conceptual understanding of the gender. Simone de Beauvoir argues that a woman is not born a woman, but she is rather made a woman. What Beauvoir argues is that the social construct of displaying femininity gets neutralized as a girl grows up. Characteristics and the social behavior of an individual while growing up is attributed to their other gender boundaries, that means male or female. The psychological acceptance and the social norms of masculine and the feminine character trait associated with particular sex become gender. Therefore, Beauvoir argues that challenged the status quo during her times when the social roles and norms were associated with the gender. The initial debates around gender go to the differences between sex and gender. Nivedita Menon argues that sex refers to the biological differences between men and women, while gender includes a vast meaning of cultural differences between the two. The distinction is essential because the subordination of women have been justified due to the biological differences between the two. In India, the patriarchal discourse is different from the West. Unlike the West, where the cultural laws define social relations, India derives its gender roles from religion. The religious discourses operate around the construction of woman's identity. In India, a woman is associated with spirituality and is worshipped in the form of deities like Durga, Saraswati, Kali and etc. Therefore, a sexualized image of the woman is condemned and it is associated with demon and evil. In Indigenous Roots of Feminism, Jasbir Jain writes about how Indian patriarchal structures in the society shapes the identities of women. In the Upanishads, there is a dualistic philosophy of soul and body, which is the representative of gender roles, and it segregates women into an inferior position than man. Let us understand now gender and performance. While the Indian society and culture debate gender roles, advocating equality and calling off gender discrimination, studies in West depart from the gender binaries and take the study to a step backwards. Judith Butler argues in her book that gender is a stylized repetition of acts which are internally discontinuous, so that the appearance of substance is precisely that a constructed identity, a performative accomplishment which the mundane social audience, include the actors themselves, come to believe and to perform in the mode of belief. Butler therefore argues that people are not born with a specific gender, but gender is produced through a stylized repetition of acts, meaning that gender is produced as a result of repetition of fixed roles. Butler further says that gender is an impersonation. It involves impersonating an ideal that nobody inhabits. Butler also argues that gender is a social significance which the sex assumes within a given culture. Butler is trying to suggest that though sex is biological, it is relinquished through time and gender emerges, and later gender displaces sex. Butler also argues that heterosexuality is a repeated effort of imitation. She is trying to point out that gender binaries of male and female are not natural and is a result of a repeated set of acts which every people have to imitate during life. Now, let us see the conceptualizing performing arts. Performing arts include various forms of art forms from theatre, dance, music, opera and many other things. It ranges from vocal and instrumental music, dance and theatre to pantomime, sung verse and many other forms of art. It uses bodily gestures, facial expressions and medium of expression through various physical art objects. The Natya Shastra, written during the 2nd century, lays down the structure of various art forms including music, dance and drama. India has a long tradition of performing arts. The origin of the text also collides with the Gupta age. Between the 4th and 6th century, which is considered as the golden age in India, the Gupta Empire witnessed an emergence and flourishing of art and culture. The purpose of these art forms was to create 9 basic emotions: love, humor, pathos, anger, heroism, terror, disgust, wonder and serenity. The art forms in India have undergone amalgamation from different cultures and empires. The music in India is one such example of such fusion. The music originated in India during the 5th century has 2 variants: Carnatic music in South India and Hindustani music in North India. The music changed from the Bhakti movement and later from the Mughal Empire in India. The Mughal Empire introduced new instruments, styles and schools of performances. The Northern school of Indian music has some of the famous singers including Amir Khusro and Mia Tansen, who lived during the rule of Mughal Empire in the 16th century. The great musicians of the southern style includes Venkatamaki and Tyagaraja and Shyama Sastri and many others. While the music since the Gupta Empire remained only in courts and for the ruling class, folk music became the emotion of the masses. It was the popular music sung during festivals, marriages and birth. Folk music different in themes, languages and motif. Rajasthan had Mand folk music, Bengal had Batiyali and Haryana had Ragini. And likewise in many cultures, many states, many different forms of music. The dance forms also comprise of significant performing arts. Some of the famous performing arts in India includes that Kathakali, Kathak, Bihu, Bharatnatyam, folk theatre culture and the Jatra. Like for example, Jatra you see in Odisha, you see in Bengal, you see in Assam, and they are based on the mythological stories, and we have puppetry. Different types of puppetries are available in different parts and the tribal rendition of the folklore. So, theatre is also one of the oldest performing arts in the country, having its roots since the Gupta Empire. One of the first dramas known in Shakuntala, written by Kalidasa, about courtesans, kings and court. Now, let us discuss about the gender in theatre. India has a very long history of theatre, having its roots in the Natya Shastra during the 2nd century. It was popular during the Gupta age, that is 320 to 550 AD, which saw flourishing cultures of art and aesthetics. Multiple meanings characterize the modern phase of Indian theatre, which began in post-independence. In the beginning, theatre in India had colonial roots. It started with English drama called Is This Called Civilization by Madhusudan Dutt in 1871. Later in the 1920s, Rabindranath Tagore, Sri Aurobindo and T.P. Kailasham and many others started writing plays. The tradition of patriarchy were prevalent in the popular theatre. In most of the theatre production, the role of woman was played by men. They were negligible female artists or scriptwriters, but the scenario changed in the post-independence. In the post-independence era, dramatists including Asif Karimbai, Pratap Sharma, Gurucharan Das took the stage. Soon, many others like Mohan Rakesh, Badal Sarkar, Mahesh Dattani, Vijay Tendulkar, Girish Karnad helped in the revival of Indian drama and made a significant contribution. Vijay Tendulkar's play confront with the human problems of the time and insights into the issues. At the same time, there were plays of G.P. Deshpande's have a gender perception which is political and have socio-political and cultural forces. Deshpande's women characters are placed in a political space of the left movement of resistance and within the patriarchal values and system. In the Kannada theatre, there were a lot of innovations and experiments in theatre. Girish Karnad in his plays portrayed women in a conflict between conscious and unconscious desires. Karnad in his plays Hayavadana and Nagamandala articulates modern concerns of women. He questions the sacred role of women in Nagamandala and celebrates the desire as transgressive. The women liberation movement in the West led to the popularity of women's theatre in India. It began to highlight gender issues such as dowry deaths, female feticide, sexual violence, ignorance, illiteracy, gender discrimination in families and society. Since the 1970s onwards, the Hindi theatre also made a gradual change in the portrayal of women. In the place of Surendra Varma and Ramesh Bakshi, sex is replaced by love. During the time, there was a rise in the women playwrights in the theatres. Some of the prominent faces were Manjula Padmanabhan, Tripurari Sharma, Neelam Mansingh Chaudhary, Usha Ganguly, Deena Mehta, Poili Sen Gupta, Irpinder Bhatia, Sushma Deshpande and many more. You can see their contribution to the theatre and the feminist perspective. The feminist theatre focuses on the exploration of the self. Conventional institutions of marriage and family are also interrogated. Miraz Dattani, like many other playwrights, questions the norms and conventions of society. Now, let us also get into the role of theatre in gender awareness. Bertolt Brecht noted that the theatre we know it, he calls it illusionism, shows the structure of society represented on stage as incapable of being influenced by the society. That means in the auditorium. The popular theatre in India, as we know, didn't give space to women for a long time. But in post-independent India, there was an influence of women's movement. In the West, the feminist theatre in India became also getting a space for the reconstruction of women's image in the society. Deena Mehta plays The Myth Makers in 1969, Getting Away with Murder, When 1 + 1 Makes 9, Sisters Like You and many other plays created a space for women-centric theatre. Manjula Padmanabhan, Lights Out, The Artist Model, Sextet and Harvest were one of her best plays. There was a departure from the earlier tradition when male playwrights used to write plays on gender-centric issues, as the male playwrights failed to capture the female psyche and perspective. Feminist plays focus on the injustice, gender discrimination and bias rather than following a linear approach of conflict resolution. It often leads to open-ended conclusions. Feminist narratives are more fluid, juxtaposed between past and present, or between the lived experiences of more than one protagonist. The feminist theatre also experimented with the mythologies, which have often been a common method of subverting narratives. Mallika Sarabai's play Sita's Daughter in 1990 is one woman play which juxtaposes the medieval Sita with modern female sufferings. In this play, Sita is not a submissive wife and mother as depicted in Ramayana, but she is featured as vocal and questioning woman who owes to rewrite her history and story. Similarly, Faiza Jalali's play Shikandi, the story of the in-betweens, reinterprets as Shikandi, a transgender person who plays a crucial part in the battle of Kurukshetra for the Pandavas in the Hindu epic Mahabharata. Faiza Jalali's play looks at Shikandi with a changed mindset. Aparna Dharwadkar argues that the female intervention and authorship in theatre has been at three levels to juxtapose male theatre. First, the female director takes up a play, whether it is Indian, Western or non-Western, with an already established text and gives it a distinct stage representation. Some of the examples include Shanta Gandhi's revival of the Sanskrit playwright Bhasha's Madhyam Vyayog, that means the middle one, and Urubhangam in 1965 to 66. Vijay Mehta's revival of Kalidasa's Shakuntala in 1979 and Vishaka Dutt's Mudra Rakshasa and many more plays. The motive of the rewriting was to transform the aesthetics and cultural potential of the play with a fresh perspective. Second, the female director develops a play from an early model, but gives the play a new meaning, setting and authorship. Such plays through the production from earlier plays has completely different from the authorship. Usha Ganguly's collaboration with Mahashweta Devi to adopt her short story Rudali for the stage is one such example where the story is adapted from an earlier text is produced differently. Thirdly, a female artist develops an original text for either solo or group performance and authors a work that tends to be a non-linear, open, anti-realistic, resistant and process oriented. Such examples would include Saoli Mitra's Natabati Antabat and Usha Ganguly's Antar Yatra. In parallel to the theatre and mainstream theatre, the street theatre became a tool in the hands of women to experiment, to express and participate in the popular discourse. The popularity of street theatre gave rise to a new movement which is feminist theatre today. Safdar Hashmi's Aurat, performed in 1917 by Jannatya Manch, was one of the significant plays of the time. The play candidly dealt with issues like bride burning, dowry and wife bettering and many other issues. Street theatre became a voice for young people, where gender has less critical role in playing any character on the street. A body is just a medium of expression. It is used as the character of a prop or any gender of human or non-human. The street theatre performances emerging as gender neutral spaces. Now, let us discuss the transgender in theatre. Till very recent, gender was seen with a binary of male and female. The Indian Constitution recognized transgender as a third gender after a Supreme Court's decision in 2014. Indian court recognizes transgender people as third gender. Today, the gender is seen as beyond these binaries and includes gay, lesbian, queer, bisexual in an umbrella term LGBTQ. Theatre in India has been ignorant of gender issues for very long. The case is evident for transgender as well as whose representation and the portrayal in theatres have been negligible. Faiza Jalali's Shikandi, The Story of the In-Betweens, is a play that aims to bring about a change in the mindset with intelligent humor and wit. It explores gender fluidity and trans identity through the myth of Shikandi in Mahabharata. Panmai, a transgender theatre group in Tamil Nadu, claims to be the first theatre group with the crew members being transgender. Panmai's first theatrical show, Colors of Trans, became a success and it was later being showed in New York, Boston and Philadelphia. It traces the journey of three transgender, their problems and gives them an agency. Another transgender theatre group in Kerala has been working of the transgender in Kerala. The theatre group Majwil Dhwani, formed in 2018, has received a positive response in its first play Parayan Maranna Kathakal. Now, let us discuss a different group which is emerging, that is drag queens and drag kings. We talk about now drag performances. Drag performances are beyond any particular gender. The performers cross-dress, and when a female cross-dressed into a male is called drag king and the male is cross-dressed is called drag queen. The performance impersonate not just the dress and makeup, but also the behavior and internalize their mind and soul of the other gender. It again provides an example that no true gender identity exists. Though cross-dressing is evident in early theatre and cinema where male acted as female, the drag performance form is still emerging as one of its kind in urban spaces in India. American television show RuPaul Drag Race, which is started in 2019, which is a reality television show in America, is an example to promote the drag performances. The Launda Nach or dance from Bihar, where cross-dressing of a male as female is seen. The cinema also has references where male and female actors are cross-dressing. For example, Kamal Hassan in Chachi 420, which came in 1997, and a television show called Comedy Nights with Kapil, where Sunil Groval cross-dresses as female, which is named Gutti or Chutki, is also another example. Drag is seen closely with the LGBTQA performances. Due to the social oppression, it remains as a private performance among like-minded people and a subculture. Drags are identified based on their aesthetics, which forms the identity like low drag and high drag. Low drag is more comic, whereas high drag is about the mimicking of a public figure. Now, let us focus on the folk music and gender. India has a rich tradition of music. Unlike the Hindustani or Carnatic music, it was not promoted in the royal court or the upper class, but it had a widespread appeal among the masses. Each state in India had a different folk song. Maharashtra had Lavani, Assam has Bihu Geet, West Bengal has Baul, Tamil Nadu has Vilupattu, and there are other forms in different states and different cultures. Folk songs were meant for special occasions like festival, marriage, harvest, birth, any human happiness or sorrow. There is songs and celebration which includes a performance also. Folk songs were often sung on musical instruments like tabla, daf, duffly, dolak or sitar and many other indigenously made instruments. Folk songs have primarily been a means of communication among people who share the same language, culture and value system. They are loaded with meanings of textual connotation, relationship and social communication. Women folk song in India mainly describes the household environment and the domestic rituals like festival, marriage, birth and etc. The folk songs sung in North India includes emotions of different facets of life, including longings, frustrations, wishes and predicaments. Folk songs often have patriarchal tinge in many cases, as there are songs to celebrate the birth of a male child, while some of the folk songs describe women as submissive and acquiescent. Others depict their femininity as bold, daring and rebellious. Smita Tiwari Jaisal in her book Unearthing Gender, Folk Songs of North India lists many such folk songs being sung by women which talks about female sexuality, land rights, gender and caste inequalities. In conclusion, let me sum up by saying women playwrights like Deena Mehta, Manjula Padmanabhan and Mallika Sarabhai gave a new dimension to the theatre where gender issues were discussed and traditional laws were challenged. Feminist theatre gave a space where women could discuss their psychology, where gender roles in Hindu mythologies like that of Sita and Shikandi were revisited with a fresh perspective. And the module also presented how transgender and drag theatre groups explore the problems of transgender and different forms of expression by cross-dressing and discusses their identity and gives an agency to transgender and the drag performers. Folklore and street theatre were a parallel form of art which were close to common people and they were becoming emerging as gender neutral places, and folklore music helps us understand the traditions and social life of the common people living during those times, while street theatre emerged as a part of challenging the elite form of theatre in the hands of a few. The history of the Indian performing arts has shown how the art form has grown over time, bringing in voices from all the ranks of the society and transformed itself to include voices across gender and social groups. There are organizations like India Art Foundation funding various projects, and many other international organizations, individuals are working to unearth the creative work done in terms of performance, singing and other art forms by the women is still undergone. So, we are yet to see many more histories which are not yet recorded. For example, in Kashmir there are many women poets who sing about the lost son, lost the husbands and many other grief and stories are yet to unearth. Their names, their recorded histories should come. And I would like to finally say that this lecture only provides a limited perspective of certain states and certain performing arts. So, but still you can explore by looking at in your own cultural space and in your own state. So, thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture, and I hope that you will follow the references and get more enriched. Thank you and happy learning.